Welcome to the Samson Strength Coach Collective podcast. We are back after a slight hiatus. I am your host, Anthony Grasso, and I will be your host for the foreseeable future. We are joined today by Coach Bobby Smith, who is the owner and director of sport performance at Reach Your Potential Training, RYPT, in Tinton Falls, New Jersey. Is that correct? Tinton Falls, New Jersey?
Tinton Falls, yes, sir. Jersey Shore, go.
Dude is Jersey proud, proud. And we're super excited to have Bobby today. Obviously, he's been around for quite some time and established himself and built up quite a resume, which I'll kind of go through now. Bachelor's degree, Monmouth University, obviously, like I said, from Jersey, 2006 in special education with a minor in health studies, key minor right there. Master's degree from the California University of Pennsylvania in 2018 in that master's in performance enhancement and injury prevention. He is a certified strength and conditioning specialist through the National Strength and Conditioning Association, and also a registered strength coach with a distinction. Master sport performance coach from the National Sports Performance Association, a performance enhancement specialist through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. He is a level 1 precision nutrition certified nutrition coach, and he also holds certifications from the United States weightlifting and USA track and field. So, gone through his certifications, and these are some things that I figured you probably wouldn't bring up because you're, somewhat of a humble guy, right? You don't want to mention these things, but you tell me if this legend holds true. And this was pulled from your bio. So you were a 3-sport standout athlete at Hopatcong High School.
Hopatcong, yes.
Hopatcong.
That's pretty good though.
That's not too bad. Okay. All right. So I've got football, basketball, and track and field. And legend has it, you were an All-American running back and top 100 in New Jersey in football. In basketball, you scored over 1,000 career points. And track and field, you were a javelin thrower, and you're the top javelin thrower in the country your senior year, winning the Meet of Champs, the Golden West, and the High School Nationals. Is all of this true, Coach Bobby Smith?
Well, I don't say an All-American football player there. That's the only thing. But yeah, I was like, one of the top running backs in the state there. I scored over, 1,000 points in high school. And yes, I did become a collegiate, or I should say national champion in high school there. And
nice.
So those were just some great, things that I went through in high school. And one of the things, like, with all that success I had in high school, and what I tell people a lot is like, man, I was a straight up ball hog. That's why I scored 1,000 points. We weren't good. We didn't have a great team, but I scored a lot. And I learned a lot from that, from what most high school athletes go through. It's like they go through this stage of like, it's about me. It's not about me. I want to go to the top college. I want to get recruited. I want coaches looking at me. And then it's like I got the college there, and like that first year, like we're all at Monmouth and we're like, man, we're better than this. We should be somewhere else. And then all of a sudden, like, we come together and we win 2 conference titles, and we're like, this is amazing. The ego, we started believing in one another, and we had this amazing experience because it wasn't about me, it was about we. And all of a sudden we just started winning conferences, championships, and it was the best thing ever. It was the most success and fun I had collegiately, even though like I was a javelin All-American, thrower. I still, to this day, like I had more fun winning together as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we are amongst greatness today, but that is a great intro and segue, obviously, into what the topic will be today. And I'll let you kind of go through and give everybody a little bit of a background on yourself and where you started from. But I just want to mention, lastly, you are a co-author of 3 separate books, The Coach's Guide to Jump Training, The Complete Guide to Training the Female Athlete, and The Complete Warm-Up. So now that we've kind of gone through everything that you probably weren't going to mention yourself, right? I kind of want to give everybody a little background of all your accomplishments and the resume that you've built up and established. Why don't you go through and just give everybody kind of the run through of how this whole thing started and where you are today, and kind of how everything transpired through the course of the years that you led up to 2022.
Yeah, man. And like it all started in high school. I had that vision, and I went to like a gym when I was in high school that was like a performance gym at that time, even though all the way back in 2000. And it was like a couple of track coaches teaching me how to move and teach me how to run, teach me how to Olympic lift. And saw a lot of benefits from there. And I knew that right there and now I was like, man, I want to be working at a gym someday. Then I went to Monmouth University, had some success there. We won 2 conference titles. I was captain of the football team. I was an All-American Division I javelin thrower. But my time at Monmouth, I had 4 surgeries there, man. I had 4 surgeries. I tore my ACL, tore my meniscus, had to get Tommy John surgery, blew my elbow out, and then dislocated my ankle my senior year. And it was like, man, I did a lot of things right, but I also did a lot of things wrong. You know, I was stuck in a weight room, lifting heavy weights really slow. I didn't go out on the, track and start running and doing these dynamic movements until later on in my career. And that's when I was like, man, this is what I need to start doing. So then luckily enough, my track coach knew someone out in California. I went and started training out in California, and it was his name was Todd Reish, and our training group was Reish Your Potential Training. And there was like 4 or 5 javelin guys who were out there training for the Olympics in 2008. And I was fortunate enough to win the Olympic trials. I didn't go to the Olympics, but it got me into the Olympic Training Center, training under Dan Path, and with Olympic gold medalists in the pole vault. That was my training group. And this is where, like, I remember the first month they were just like laughing at me. They're like, "You won the trials?" And I'm like, just this meathead football player, cut off sleeves, like doing all these drills completely wrong. And then 3 months in, all of a sudden, like, I'm right with them, popping up. My hips are up, my knees are up, looking smooth, looking like a track and field athlete. And that's when I was like, this is my 5-year plan. I want to open up a gym in New Jersey, train high school, college, middle school athletes. And I wanted to teach them how to move, how to lift properly, how to run and throw and change directions. And like, I have like that 5-year plan that I wrote that out that year.
Yeah.
And then got back, started training with, actually I went over across seas to Australia, worked with a track and field coach there, brought him back to New Jersey. He was training, living with me and my girlfriend at the time. And then I was trying to get ready for the 2012 Olympics. And then I blew out my knee. And that's where I was like, you know what? It's not my time. All right. Rehabbed again, got ready. And I was like, you know what? Let's start this, let's open up our own gym, And my wife was in another facility at the time that closed because of poor management. And right there and then I was like, this is the calling. Let's do it. Let's open up a facility together. My wife's business was booming. I was just still growing as a coach. And I was like, man, like, we opened up what RYPT is today, 16,000 square feet. And I'm like, man, I'm going to need help. I'm going to need help. And I put out an ad on the NSCA, got like 125 coaches that emailed me with their resumes. And it was like 20 of them that were really good. And then I like interviewed them, and it wasn't right. So I put another ad out there, changed the wording a little bit. And then like Adam's fight resume came across. And I was like, man, this guy was good. Carolina Panthers, Louisville. He was at all these different places. And I like emailed him, was like, what are you doing this weekend? He's like, what? I was like, I'm flying you and your wife out. Let's go. Yeah. And I showed him the gym, showed him my vision, and like made it work. And, RYPT wouldn't be today where it is without Mary Kate and Adam, They're no longer with us. They're at Springfield doing great things there. They got their doctorates, changing that program there, doing great things. And, it wouldn't be RYPT without us three.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm really glad you mentioned the injury history too. When I saw that, I'm thinking to myself, I really hope he mentions that when he goes through the story and the journey, because I mean, what a great way to obviously try to figure out what it is that you're going to do. And then obviously try to like you had for what we would consider major issues, right? These are problems that you needed to solve. And then now you're trying to provide some sort of problem solving material for everybody else that you come across now. So what better, incentive to open up your own facility and provide that for athletes. So that's really awesome. And I'm glad that you were able to actually capitalize on that. I think a lot of people, when they suffer from some of those injuries, would probably have called it quits at one point or another, but there's a reason why you continued to, push forward. And there's a reason you're probably able to experience all of those injuries as well, is because of the fact that you were, competitive enough to be like, hey, I'm going to overcome this injury. I'm going to continue pushing forward and to do what I need to do from a rehab perspective. And I'm going to make sure that I continue to experience what I need to experience. And that's probably, it's the same things that like almost like made you successful in your ability to have a longer sporting career, or probably what made you successful in your ability to have a longer career as a coach. So that is pretty cool. I do have one quick question about Dan Pfaff. I didn't know you trained with him. So what was that experience like? Because I've heard, different stories, and he comes across a very, calm, collected, composed demeanor. And I'm wondering if that was
training with who again? Sorry.
Dan Pfaff.
Oh, Dan Pfaff. Yeah, man. He was very interesting to say the least. I remember like 3 months in, he's like, man, it's good to have a Jersey guy in here. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you're just busting everyone's balls, man. I love it. just like holding everyone accountable. Just like, what you're not bringing it today. What's going on? You feeling all right? Let's go. Meal at the center. Let's go. It's like, and he was extremely knowledgeable. And I remember my wife first came out there, she, physical therapist, and she was talking to him, and she like just had like 10, 15-minute conversation with him. And she's like, that's the head track coach. I was like, yeah. Wow, man, he is smart. Like, he was talking things over my head. Like, it's just, he's very knowledgeable, smart guy. And he learned a lot from him.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as you can see, guys, that this is why I wanted to have you on this podcast, because I mean, you're bringing a wide variety of experiences, and your ability to explain your experiences now, obviously, as you get older and get a better understanding of what happened, why it happened, and started to piece it all together. And that kind of leads me into my next question. So the theme for today is going to be the components of training and developing a great team. And when we spoke on the phone yesterday, I brought up the idea that, I recently I was reading this book written by a former Navy SEAL, and in the book, it's a very simple concept, but they talk about the idea of a value or a mission statement. And in most every company or business or team will have some sort of mission statement. And usually it consists of what you plan to do or what you plan to provide. So obviously as a facility and as a coach, there's things that we're providing for sure. But what I thought was interesting was he sort of mentioned the lack of value in just talking about what you were going to provide, but more so talking about who you were going to be, right? So you have, obviously, when you're in the Navy SEALs, pretty much everything they have is each other. It's within the brotherhood that they are trying to establish, because they know operationally they can do everything right, from like a weapons standpoint, logistics, tactical, all that kind of stuff. The reality is, like, all that stuff is just operational. If they don't have that core belief in who they are, what they plan to bring to the table as a human being, eventually there's going to be some sort of cracks where things slip through. So I'll lead in with that question, and then you can kind of go through and begin your thoughts and sort of present to us your thoughts on the components of training and developing a great team. But the ethos, sort of who you think you are and who you plan to be for the athletes and the people that you come across in your life.
Yeah, man. And this is a great topic, and I'm glad you picked this and thought we can go from this, because last time I presented this was like 2019, and like going over my PowerPoint was like, my team has changed. My team has changed since this, and it's going to change. We're going to have turnover. And I think for where, with me, it's like what I even tell my athletes, I just had this talk with them the other day, is like, why I coach the way I coach is because I wish I had me when I was your age. I wish I had me, because I know I would have been better. And I know the coach that I want to be, and I know the coach I wish I had. Like, all the coaches I had, I'm kind of like developed into that person. And it's like, I'm going to be loud. I'm going to be obnoxious. I'm going to be funny. We're going to have fun, but we're going to work and we're going to get better. And I'm going to hold you to that standard of ripped to make sure we're bringing it day in and day out. Simple as that. And that's what I wish I had. But, coming up with this team aspect, I think what starts a great team, but also we have to start what brings a team down, and I think the first thing is like the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And, great book that I had to read during my master's. And I was like, man, this is spot on. And the 5 dysfunctions of a team is like: 1, absence of trust, fear of commitment, fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoiding of accountability, and inattentions to results, and those 5 things are what breaks a team down. And the first one, like absence of trust, like the unwillingness to be vulnerable within a group. And when like the team is not open to one another about their mistakes or weaknesses, and make it impossible to build that foundation of trust. And like, I remember like we were going through, and I totally in the beginning, like made the mistake. It was totally on me, but I was unwilling to say it was my fault. I remember like, it was like, man, no way. I can't make the mistake. I'm the guy. I can't. Right. And then my one like coach is like, yo, it says it right here. We're supposed to be doing 3-second eccentric. You told them it was, I was like, nah, we didn't.
Nope.
Like, at the beginning, that's where I was not the leader I am today that could admit that mistake, and now it's building that trust in letting like the team know, like, man, I make mistakes every time in a meeting. Let them know, like, it happens, and then we all make mistakes, but we don't make mistakes out on the turf. Like, if we do make mistakes, as long as the athletes don't know about it.
Right.
I'd be like, when you're doing that lateral squat, it's supposed to be a lateral lunge during the warm up. And, we were doing the bird dog, you were doing a dead bug. You know what I mean? My man was always like, yeah, gotcha. I was like, they didn't know. All right. I know. And I will always know. right? Yeah, it's just like, and we've gone through a lot of change now, like even the past couple months, because now in the winter season, we are slammed. We're like almost at 300 athletes going through our facility this week. And it's like we had to bring on a couple coaches and we had to train them real quick to get them ready up to speed. And the other thing that, what happened to us this year is like, this is the first summer we did have no interns.
Really?
Any interns, none. And it was, I had to bring on old interns and pay them, but they were coaches and it was great because they were very developed and already went through the RIP system. But now it's like the future because those interns graduate and become coaches. So it's like affecting us now, in the long run there.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. Was that because of COVID and everything going on?
Well, yeah, we definitely had a lot of issues with that being said.
Yeah.
But, back to the 5 dysfunctions, I think the other one I wanted to talk about was avoiding accountability. And, the unwillingness of team members or peers to, call each other out of their, performance, the lack of like, it's going to hurt the team. And we had like a couple of new coaches come on right now and like, they're coming from other jobs. So it's like, we normally meet at Monday, Wednesday, 3:00 and they're on Tuesday, Thursday, or they couldn't get there at 3:00 and we like throw them into the fire. And I was like, this isn't working. I'm like, you have to get here. So we go over the meeting so you know what to do. Because if you don't know what to do, now we're going to call you at, it's like, we asked them to do like a different jump. Like, all right, we got the jumps today, vertical jump, 3-peat long jump. And it like, didn't know what to do. We're like, all right, give the demo. And he like messed up. And they're like, all right, give another one. Messed up again. I was like, let's go, man.
Yeah.
From the kids. Because now kids, like, especially in a couple groups, have been there way longer than these new coaches. And they know.
Yeah. It's funny. The kids don't miss a beat. The kids, I mean, the athletes are arguably the smartest people in the room, especially as they get accustomed to a system and they get comfortable with what's been going on. And obviously they develop that trust within you as a coach. Right. And the more they become almost like like super loyal and almost like a disciple of the program, it's like, it's harder and harder for young coaches to come into obviously a culture that's been bred and established. Right. And it's so funny that the kids, like the athletes, they don't miss anything. And that's why it's, some of those establishments are the toughest places to go in and coach, where there is an established culture where everybody knows what's going to be done, knows how it's going to be done. Right. It's like,
they'll be like, yo, man, you're putting the weights back wrong. Don't go there. Like out this fall. And I was like, damn, Bobby, calm down, man.
Right.
Like, I want to work here. That's why. I was like,
yeah. Those are the guys that become good coaches, right? Those are the athletes that become coaches.
And that's what a lot of our interns have been too, is like, athletes that have been through our program, which is great.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like mistakes we've made, man. Like we've all made mistakes growing. Like now, literally, this is year 10 of the business. Year 10. Sure. And I remember one, like in particular, one of the coaches that I was becoming a little bit too friendly with, like becoming almost losing that boss, coach relationship. And I remember like he shot a video, like a Snapchat of him dancing on my desk. And I was just like, bro, I'm like, I'm your boss, man. You can't do that. You can't dance on my desk, man. What the? And he's like, my bad. I'm sorry. I was like, that's the line crossed. Like, next one, man, like I can't have that. He's like, gotcha. My bad.
That's tough. Yeah. Dancing on the boss's desk, like, not advised.
With them, like we're friends, we're friendly, but it's like, hey man, I'm the leader. I'm the captain. This is what you got to have it. Just like anything, like especially 100% young coaches working with young athletes, especially like interns coming in at the same age of college kids. That's where we always have that issue where like, I remember one of our interns is like, I used to like dab everyone up before, the sesh. And then I was like, now I became their friend. And now I had to stop that and let them like, hey man, I'm your coach.
Right.
Like, we're boys, but I'm your coach.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's so obvious to other coaches and other athletes in the room when there is some sort of like barrier that's been broken down where you have an athlete or even another coach on staff who seems to be a little more friendly with the boss or whoever the director is. I mean, there's always almost like this unspoken word or this like unwritten rule. You just kind of almost know who the director is or who the head guy is. And it's not to say, obviously like one of, the talk you're talking about things that bring a team down is the ability to show some vulnerability and, admit mistakes and things like that. So it's not to say that, the director or the leader should be completely above approach or anything to that effect, but there does need to be some lines, right? And obviously there needs to be some boundaries in order to establish, because otherwise nothing gets done, right? Like who's the point person? You know what I mean? I think it's like, we always got to kind of know, yes, this is a team, but there has to be somebody who's going to be able to kind of make the final decision on some things. And obviously establishing those clear boundaries, I would say is very difficult to do as a leader. I would imagine, especially considering you've probably coached and worked with a lot of the athletes who then become coaches for you or interns.
Right. No, yeah, we definitely have 2 girls on our staff now, or 3 girls on our staff now. Excuse me. Yeah. Have all been through our program, and now coach has been working for us.
Right.
So now it's like they know, and like now they see, like now this is what happens in the office.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's a little bit of a challenge for sure.
But
that's
the other mistake that we've made too is like we were growing early in our career, and we brought in this guy that had his master's, had all this experience, and we kind of threw him right into the fire, and we didn't develop him. We just and I strictly remember, we went through 2 seasons and Adam's presenting about our speed system that we were doing. And this guy's sitting there writing notes. And I look at Mary Kate, I was like, why is he taking so many notes? And she's like, you guys never explained it to him like this. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
he should be taking the most notes. He should be doing this stuff. He works for us, know? And that was just like light bulb, man, we have to develop. We can't just bring people in and say, watch us, then do what we do. That was very, a mistake that we made early on.
Yeah.
Now it's like we learned what we want our coaches to understand and know and what we need from them. And then let's go. We don't need to teach them everything. They don't need to know everything. They need to know these certain things that we're going to go over.
Yeah. So you feel as a director, there's probably a ton of value in identifying where the intern or the coach is at in their particular journey and kind of meeting them where they're at. And there are times where you feel you've made mistakes where you've either given too much to someone who may not have been prepared for it, or not enough to somebody who maybe have been maybe progressed a little bit faster than other interns. Is that would you agree with that?
And no doubt, sometimes you got to throw them in the fire and see if, or throw them in the pool, see if they're going to sink or swim.
Sure.
But at other times, we want to set them up for success and let them know. But, definitely have done that before. And now it's we learned our lesson. It's we want them to develop them. Even these new coaches that we had to bring on, all right, I can't develop you in person, but now we have 3 educational products. Let's go through the dynamic warm up and make sure we know how to run the warm up the way we do it.
Sure. Yeah. As far as the phases that you take your interns through and this development process that you talk about, do you want to kind of just take us through, it doesn't have to be super specific, but just the idea of what you go through when it comes to actually trying to develop coaches? Because I think that is a key component of it. And one thing that I think I think everybody when they're young is super impatient and everybody thinks they know everything, right? When you're a young coach. And I think it's tough, but I was lucky enough to have a mentor who, very bright and resourceful guy, but he also knew listen, I'm not going to give you more than I think you're ready for, despite how much I would love to immerse in this conversation with you. It's you need to focus on getting great at this right now. And then we'll move on to X and X, that kind of deal. And, obviously you may be pushed up against time restraints too. You may not have these guys for 5 to 6 years, right? The idea is that you only have some of these coaches for a couple of years and then they move on and they, push them forward. But what are your thoughts on the process that you would like to take them through to feel okay, I'm meeting them where they're at in the true development?
I think the first thing is setting the expectations and let them know what I want from them and what I expect from them. And we used to have a handout, and then I was just this ain't doing it. Now I came up with a PowerPoint, meet with them through an hour, and we go through it. And that I felt as soon as I did that, it met a different standard.
Sure.
It meant more because we went through it together, and it's all right, expectations of coach, obviously work hard, care, attention to detail, look the part, fulfill your responsibilities, integrity, ask questions and coach. And I think the biggest one right there in the beginning is like care, and an athlete will work harder for you when they know that you are caring for them. And what we provide caring is like, you got to know their name, you got to know their school, you got to know their sport, how it can relate to them. When we're doing the vertical jumps, she plays soccer, go up for the header. Let's go, get up there, grab a rebound, basketball players, go up for the interception, football players. Like little things like that makes a huge difference into the athletes that they know you care, man.
Absolutely.
After I graduated from Monmouth, that first year out, like that hardest year, like everyone goes through, I was fortunate enough to be part of like this Olympic development, program where they paid for like 5 meets, and I'm going around the country working with coaches. And the one coach like, man, if you're going to stay in New Jersey, you got to go work with Martin Rooney. I was like, who? He's like, yeah, free. You got to go up there. And I remember like writing him an email, and I was like, hey, Martin, Bobby Smith, blah, blah, blah. And he like didn't get back to me like within a week. I was like, I'm going to go work with, and then I remember calling the coach. I was like, yeah, he didn't even get back to me. He's like, well, call him. And I like called him, and then like didn't get back to me. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go there. I'm going, and I just went there, and I was like, hey man, Martin, this is Bobby Smith, blah, blah, blah. And just was like, I was like, yeah, Tom Puskis told me I got to go see you. You're the guy. But, and he's just like, all right. And like, just like set that expectation and like, let that, like, I learned so much from Martin. I couldn't tell you like the training sessions that we went through, but mindset and the ability to help develop me, has gone great. And the coach.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to emphasize the care and the name, right? I do think that's super important. So obviously you talked about, Martin and your ability to actually be developed, right? And for him to meet you where you are. But I also think there's something to be said, and I think that it gets overlooked a little bit when it comes to learning the athletes' names, right? Like I think a lot of coaches come in and it's like, I want to show you how much I know. I want to show you my skills, my abilities. I want to figure out a way to, express the humility that I need to express as an intern or a coach or whatever the case may be, but also find that, beacon of light where I can say, hey, look what I'm capable of doing. But I can't stress enough. And I've always stressed this to anybody I've interned with or anybody who's interned for me is you have to know the athletes' names. I mean, like it's just imagine when someone addresses you and they just say, hey, can you do this for me? Right. As opposed to saying, hey, Bobby, would you mind helping me out with this? Like just the fact that your name is inserted in there, it almost sounds completely different in my opinion. So I think it's, it's so important to be able to know the athletes' names. And I always try to get it down like, hey, within the first like 2 weeks, like you should know everybody on this roster. You should know exactly their names and, first and last name, a little bit background of like where they're from, what they're about, that kind of deal. Because then obviously they'll always have context as to where you're coming from when you are coaching them, right? If you are coaching them and you're providing some instruction and you're providing direction, even if it comes off a little bit more directive or forward at times in the heat of the moment in a session, if they know that you know their name and they know why you are actually out here doing what you're doing, they're much more rational when it comes to obviously listening and being receptive to what it is that you're saying. So I really can't stress enough. I agree. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, like learn their names first. So that's who they are. It's the only thing we all share in common, right? Is the fact that we have this name we need to protect and have pride in, and they're just as prideful as anybody else.
100%, man. And like we get interns in there and like all of a sudden they're like, yeah, like they're not doing the right. I try to correct them and then you come over and they do it right. And I was like, what's their name? I was like, what's their name? And I don't know. Does she even know your name?
Right.
Well, imagine that.
Two-way street. Yeah.
Stranger is like, yo, you're not doing that right. What do you think? And it's like, hey, like even now, like my wife has her physical therapy practice inside our facility and she has a ton of that people rehabbing there. And like, I don't know them. They know me because they can't, I'm screaming. So, but I'll like go up there and be like, hey man, what's your name? Oh, what, you here? Oh man. Yeah. I had my knee done. Yeah. All right. So on the squat, you want to make sure that we're not shifting one side or the other. When you come over and look in the mirror, I remember the same thing when I was going through my ACL and all of a sudden they're like, oh man, this guy that was screaming his fucking eyes were about to bulge out or like really, like caring and wants me to get better, It's just, it goes a long way.
Yeah. That conversation itself, just right. That small conversation that you initiated prior to actually providing any instruction, I think goes an extremely long way. I think what also is important is your ability to obviously go from like you said, like he was viewing you as, oh, wow, like that coach is over there screaming and yelling. He's like getting after the guys or whatever. But then it comes, kind of bring it full force. And it's like you come back to being almost a human, right? And they're like, oh, like there's a human side to this guy. And he wants to talk to me about a little bit of a, just like a little, conversation. He just kind of wants to get to know me a little bit before he's actually going to provide any instruction. And I think that goes for quite literally anybody in the building. And I think a lot of people are getting better at this. At least I've seen like in the field, is understanding that it's so important to know everybody's name. I always think it's awkward if you work in the same building as somebody else and you're working for the same program and they may have a completely separate department than you. For example, like if you work in the football building, you have somebody who works in the administrative staff or in academics, for example, and you don't know their name, and you're in the strength and conditioning department. I even think that that's awkward, even though you guys may never cross paths on a daily basis. I think it's like, if we're obviously in some capacity, we're all working towards the same goal. So we should all know each other's names and know a little bit about what kind of makes us go. Right. So whether it's the facilities guy or whatever, because I think that what that actually does, especially in a facility like yours, it opens yourself up to getting better input, I guess you could say, because in my mind, I'm thinking best idea wins, right? If I don't care if it's, the guy who's, out there painting the wall outside the building, if he has a better way of justifying and explaining what he thinks needs to be done for this particular program, and he has a better way of justifying it, then, and it's better than mine, then his idea is better and he wins. And that's really the simple fact of the matter. So I think getting back to it, I think learning people's names, even in just a side conversation before, hey, before you go ask them like, hey, is it okay if we get the try? Like there's something over there, like on the floor, something spilled, whatever the case is. It's like understanding their names, understanding a little bit about who they are. They feel respected. They feel more inclined to actually be incentivized, and not in a fake way either. You know what I mean? I think the way you just described, you're doing it in a way that's genuine. You genuinely care about the people that are in your facility and getting them better. So you're going to make sure you take the necessary steps in order to meet them where they're at.
Definitely, man. Caring goes a long way. It does.
Absolutely.
And then when I say like looking the part is like, I think a huge red flag is when they don't train in the facility. When they're not training in the facility, that's when I start to get nervous and worried, because it says like, I was like, no, man, we train this time and we're training here together. All right. Oh, you can't make that time? All right, man. Gym's open earlier. Get in here and train.
Right.
Do the program that the kids are going to do, or do similar of it. Go through the warm up. Because you got to feel it, you got to know it, because then you're going to be a better coach.
Right. Yeah.
I feel
absolutely. That's immersing yourself in the culture.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And ask genuine questions to ask questions. Like I've had interns just ask questions, man. And it's just like, don't waste our time. You know?
Yeah.
You're here to learn, you're here to develop, and this is a two-way street. What you put in is what you're going to get out. And if you're putting in, I'm going to put in you. Simple as that. Like if you're working out there, man, I'm going to freaking help you out. And I remember we had an intern come, it was his first week, and he pulled out the ladder and started fixing things on the wall. And I was like, yo, what are you doing? He's like, well, this was, coming up a little bit. It was a little crooked. And I was like, who told you to do that? He's like, no one. I was like, well, how do you even know where the ladders were? He's like, well, I just went over there and saw it and fixed it. I was like, I like you already, man. Keep that up.
You're cool, man. You're cool. Yeah, I'm cool with you.
Now, he's at Rutgers, working at their strength and conditioning staff. He's been going on. It was like you just knew right from the start, that this kid was going to be good. It's just those little things that took pride in the gym. That's the other thing. I don't ask my coaches to clean. We'll probably clean twice a year. I have a cleaning company that comes in, we train a kid for free, and he does a lot of the little cleaning to keep the gym up to, but when the interns first come, we clean the facility. One, you get to know exactly where everything is, where it goes. Two, you take a little pride in it and realize, this stuff's expensive.
Right. No doubt.
Different, a little feel to that when they come in there. I'm like,
I
will never ask you to clean again. You know why? Because I had to do that during my internship. I had to work out. I had to clean for an hour before I went out and actually coached, and I hated it. So this is the things I went through. This is what I'm learning, and that's what I'm not going to ask you to do. You're here to coach.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think there's definitely some, little bit of PTSD, from some of the early internships that I think a lot of us experienced, right?
Yeah.
Some of the old school ways, like toothbrush inside the weights and all that kind of stuff. And I think I think it's important for a lot of the interns coming in to know, like, hey, there's still going to be some sort of, earning process, right? Like, and not all interns are the same, obviously, in terms of their approach. Like, I was an intern who was more along the lines of, I want to just keep my mouth shut and I'm going to just watch and absorb, kind of learn, like I said, learn everybody's name, learn kind of the way things roll. And then before I start trying to provide value in that sense. And then some come in and they want to be a little bit more eager in terms of providing input or whatever it is they want to fast track. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've come to appreciate that a little bit, but I mean, maybe it's a little more old school. Like I had my first like real internship, in my opinion, was when I started training with a powerlifting crew, and some like old school dudes who were like, hey, listen, buddy, you're going to just stand there. You're not going to say a word. We're going to give you a nickname that you don't like. And we're going to make sure that you load all of our plates and watch us lift. And I don't want you to say anything. And then once we feel like we respect you enough, we'll actually start coaching you and allowing you to lift with us. And it was kind of it was, it's not a resume that I have on my, and it's not an internship I have on my resume, but it's one that I would say is probably the most valuable, You're
like, sir, yes, sir, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Exactly.
Absolutely. But that made you who you are, and you appreciate the other internships,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good foundation, good establishment. One thing I wanted to ask you, did you have any more thoughts that you?
All right, so we set the expectations. Yeah. Now it's like a 6-week process. All right, 6 weeks. First week you come in, and like the biggest thing I always say to the interns is like, man, I can give you a fish and feed you for a day, or I can teach you how to fish and feed you for a lifetime. I'm teaching you how to be a RIP coach, and this is going to help you going on. Even though if you're never going to stay here and work here, as long as you learn the ins and outs here and our whys that we do the things, that's going to help you tremendously in your career of sports performance coaching. And the first week is like, man, just be a fly on the wall. I want you observing. I want you helping out where we need you. But biggest thing is like, you're there just to take down notes, ask good questions. Why were we doing this way? Why were you standing this way? What were you looking at when you're doing that drill? What do you, like, ask those like good questions, because that's what I want to hear. Then it's like week 2. All right, now you're going to learn why we do our warm up, how we do our warm up, the sections that we go through our warm up. Then we have the warm up DVD. And a lot of coaches are like, oh man, it's easier for you because now you have all those educational products. Guess what? We did it in the beginning. We would do that with them all the time. And we would meet with them. And next thing you know, it's like year 4 of the internship. And Adam's like, why do we keep doing this? Let's just film ourselves doing it with the interns. This way we have it. And then we don't need to go and meet with the interns all the time. They can do it on their own. I was like, yes, that's great. Let's do that. So then we would go and like, all right, I would film Adam. You go there. All right, Adam would film me. Then we'll go through the warm up. And then it's like, all right, now you know are the categories of our warm up, what we do on the different days. Now I want you to create a warm up. All right. So they create the warm up through the kind of RIP system, the categories, but bring your flair to it. I want you to, this is the time for you to teach us things from your experience that you fit into these categories that will help us, and then it's like, all right, best warm up warms up the group before we train. All right, go warm up the group now. Let's go through the warm up, and that's
cool.
Yeah. Like, all right, I got the best intern award this week. Let's go through the warm up together. And that's where it's like, that's where we felt like we need the biggest help with is in the summertime, especially, is like help warm the groups up, help warm the groups up. Cause I'm just finishing with the group and now another group starting. If you can warm that group up, I can break this warm group out. Then I can get the cards all set. We can get everything going and then we get ready for it. And that's where it's like, man, that helps us out tremendously. And when I tell the interns, man, I love the warm up. It sets the tone. It gets them ready. Because if you get a crap warm up, they come to me and they're just like, and I was like, what did you do? Like, what did you do to them? Like, you're giving crap, man. Let's go. I need these kids sweating, juiced up, ready to go and have an amazing session. Like, that's why I love the warm up, And it lets me see the athletes too. Like, all right, Natalie's having a little tough day today. What's going on, Natalie? And like, my first question always for girls, like, what's his name? And they're like, what? What? And I was like, yeah, focus. Let's go. We got cleans today. Come on. Let's get the mind right.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I think, getting them to understand the warm-up, the importance of the warm-up, huge. Then week 3, we go into like our power training. So our jumps, our Olympic lifts, go into different, components of that power training. Then it's like, all right, Now we're going through it. Now I want you to pick 3 different exercises. So a plyo, a med ball, and an Olympic lift, or like one of the explosive lifts that we do. And now you coach us. Now we're the athletes, you know, and it's just simple as like, they're turning their head and they're like, all right, now we're going into the clean. What we're going to do here? And I was like, you're not even looking at me. You're not even looking at the group.
I can't even hear you.
Yeah. And just those little things, there's like huge that they don't understand, you know?
Yeah.
Address it. Address the group. This is how we do it. Because we go over everything. Like it's week 8. We're going over the card exactly how it would be week 1 with the kids.
Sure.
You know? That's it. Just the high school kids, man. We break it down this is the way we do it every single time.
No doubt.
And like interns take it for granted too. I was like, all right, you have a 14-year-old girl that's never lifted before, go. And I'm like, whoa, she never picked up a bar. What the hell's a barbell? How do you pick up a barbell? You know, like, yeah, we got to learn this. We got to go through this. You know?
Yeah.
Honestly, throughout their career, like be great at 101, man. Be great at 101.
No doubt.
Now power training. Then week 4, then we go into our strength training. Like our major lifts, our auxiliary lifts that we do in the program. How do we coach it? What are we looking for? Go through that. Now we're a month in, then we're at week 5, go over our program design, how we do our program, our systems, our template, our categories that we're going to go through. And that's like, I feel like a really eye-opening experience for them because a lot of them don't come from a performance background. They're coming right from school. So it's like it's like single joint exercises, bodybuilding, you know, and now it's like movement patterns, vertical push, horizontal, bilateral, unilateral pushing and pulling. Like I think, some universities are better than others, but at first, like we get kids in here and it's like looking at, Spanish 4 and they don't even know Spanish,
Yeah. Spanish 4 is tough.
Yeah. I want to know. I did German.
Oh yeah. yeah. That's that. I'm sure that's just as difficult. It's not more difficult.
It's going to take off. I'm going to Germany this summer and
I saw that. Yeah.
Damn.
That's wild, dude.
I know. Cool, man. Looking forward to that.
Oh,
they paid off. Everything happens for a reason.
Oh, right.
And week 6 is like of our summer internship is like the week before we kick off the summer program. So like 12 weeks. The first 6 weeks is like we're finishing our spring. Our college kids are in, so they're in the morning. We go through the college program. Then we go through our RIPS curriculum. Then we train. Then we teach our spring athletes. And then after that comes into now it's the end of June. Now our summer season starting. And the goal of the internship is I would love an intern to come over and you're taking the lead of a high school group.
Nice.
That is the goal of the internship. All right. And what we learned too is like in the summer, we'll have like 350 athletes in the summer. You don't need to know over 350 athletes. You're going to be in charge of 3 groups. You need to know their names, their school, their sport, and get great at those athletes there. And the goal is for you to take the lead in those groups.
Yeah. That's got to be pretty exhilarating for them.
Yeah, man. Then the good ones do. And then the other ones don't, and that's fine. And they're not in the field anymore, but that's as long as they've gone through it, like I got my degree in special education. I'm not a teacher anymore. I'm not a teacher in a school and classroom because I knew I would be bouncing off the walls. But, but I learned a lot from that internship that I had or my student teaching. And like, it makes me the coach I am today.
Yeah.
And they can't even get in front of a group.
Right.
And now I'm there in front of the group. I'm making fun of kids laughing and we're having a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. I like that. I like that progression a lot. And it's nice when you have the time to obviously build them up prior to the summer groups coming in, because obviously the summer is, I would assume we're in the private sector and working in a private facility. The summer is a pretty busy time for you guys. So it's like, having that help and having somebody who can actually create an impact and take it upon themselves to be able to provide some sort of value is got to be super helpful for you guys.
Definitely, man. And like, I missed it this year, like not having those interns in there that help develop and coach and you go through them and like every year it's the same thing, man. These kids are horrible. What have they been doing in school? And then they finish and man, they look pretty good now,
yeah.
Good. But it's like the same thing. They come in, they see the end of our spring athletes, like phase 3, and they're like, all right, man, these kids, all right. And then they see the beginning of the summer, like, oh my God, these kids are so bad. And I was like, yeah, man, they're bad. They're going to be bad. We just make them a little bit better. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Provide a little bit of guidance there.
That's
Yeah.
it.
That's awesome.
And I think the last big thing of like developing a great team is like, how do you keep the right people on the bus? You know, like how do you keep the people on your team that you want on your team to make your team what it is today? Like, I love the team that I have. Like, we go into our team meetings, man, and it's fun. It's like we go over the program and everyone's bought in. We're good. They're ready to go. All right, we're all set. Let's go. Bring that in. Let's go. Break it out.
Nice.
You know, like, and that's where I learned, like, a lot of them, all of them, the coaches played a college sport. You know, it's just like, it's just different. It's different. Not saying that you have to play a college sport, but like, you're, it's what I get out of the coaches that work.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's a hard environment, man. Like, I do demand and expect a lot. And like, this is still, you know, like one of my coaches, like, I'm taking off. I'm like, you're taking off when? Thursday? When? In 3 weeks, you want off? And it's like, all right, we'll make it work. You know, like, they just don't like, you know, how do you keep those right people on the bus, man? Is like, invest in them. And how do you invest? Like, everything comes down to love. And then, like, how do you spell love? Is TIME, man. Time. Put the time in. You know, put the time in.
Yeah.
You know, that's where it is. Like, you know, my wife knows, like, when summer hits and the interns come, like, I'm going to be there at the gym all day. Like, unfortunately, I don't need to be at the gym all day, all the time. But when they're there, like, I need to invest in them to give them this, because like, it's an unpaid internship, but they're going to get so much more than value and money. They're going to get becoming a coach.
Right.
You know? That's where I tell them, like, you know, we had interns, like, someone, like, girl came in this summer, was like, yeah, I need to get paid. And I was like, well, we work Monday through Thursday, half day Friday. I was like, my friend owns a restaurant. I can get you there and be a waitress. She's like, you do this in the working weekends? So I was like, and she's like, nah, I have a gym up, you know, north where I can, you know, work at, and I get paid there. I was like, who do you train? She's like, well, you know, old women that are out of shape. And I was like, you enjoy that? Some people do, man. They do. Yeah. Like, they can make a great living off that. That's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
We don't have an adult program. We got rid of it. You know, it's like, we just work with athletes. That's it.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's awesome that you're able to actually establish that to where your facility solely works with athletes. Like, a lot of places obviously need to create some sort of, you know, other revenue to keep the lights on kind of thing. So yeah, but that's awesome. You guys have established yourself in that fashion.
Yeah. It's great.
One question I do have about trying to keep people on the bus, or the right people on the bus. So if you could just kind of describe the layout and the construct of your operation. So like, is it just, obviously you're running a sport performance operation. So do you have strength coaches? Do you have PTs? Do you have athletic trainers also in the building? Like, what's the staff look like? And then how do you go about kind of putting together a staff that blends certain personalities and meets certain needs? You know, I guess like there's obviously some sort of, you know, art to putting together a team, right? And making sure that you're not just hiring the same types of people, but I'll let you kind of elaborate on your thoughts on what you need from certain people and how to kind of make it so that the team meshes well as far as qualities go.
Yeah, man. I think we have an extremely unique facility as like my wife's business. She has Elite Sports Physical Therapy, and it's housed inside the same facility. And then I have Rip. So it's like two different businesses operating the same facility. She mainly sees, you know, same thing, adolescent and high school athletes coming back from ankles, knees, shoulders, you know, mainly coming back from surgery. So it's from like 3 to 5, it's this unique setting where it's kind of like an athletic training room, a college training room with high school kids. You know? And from 1 to 3, she sees some active adults, college kids that come in during that time. Then from like 3 to 5, 3 to 6, it's just slammed with high school kids, which is great. It's awesome. And yes, they have 5 PTs in there. 3 of the 5 are athletic training certificate or athletic trainers. The office manager is an athletic trainer. Like, you know, it's like a unique setting. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. And then for my business too, like my office manager was a former college athlete. You know, she's a college professor during the morning. So she comes in the afternoons at night, does all the paperwork, business side of it, make sure people are on payments, and then it goes through there. So we don't operate right now. Like our first class is at 3:30 for reps. We wait for the kids to get out of school. But then we have 3:30, we have a 4, then a 4:30 junior rep, middle school kids, 5 o'clock high school, 6 o'clock high school, 6:30 we'll get a team in, 7 o'clock will be like our mighty ripped, our little kids that like my son comes in, is in second grade, runs around crazy.
Nice.
Yeah. But from there, like it's extremely seasonal. Like winter and summer, we're rolling, we're slammed. Then spring and fall, we get basketball kids in and never really want to lift. So that's always tough. So during that time, like we'll go down to like 100, 120 athletes. You know? So it's like you got to know how to operate and manage that, finances to carry you through the other seasons that are slow.
Sure.
Yeah, man. But like what you said, like getting the right people on the bus and getting the right personalities and like knowing them. Like I have a coach that's been with me. She's coming up on a year. Great, smart girl, great athlete. She's not a lion. Not a lion. Will not yell at the kids. Won't. Kids love working for her. Like good, boom. But now like big group comes in, she can't take that lead because you got to be a lion at one point. Like last night we had 19 middle school kids come in. It's like, boom, Sarah, let's go. You're in charge. Boom, go. And she's lying. And the other one's getting everything set, cards all set. What we have next? What's going on? What can I help out? I just finished my 5 o'clock. What can I set up for the big group? All right, we're put the dots at. All right, we're doing planks over here. Got the elevation over here for the heels for squats. Boom, and then it's like rolling. So it's like know their strengths and know like you're not going to change them. That's their personality. Like that's them. And I know like Ron McKeefer has came up with his book, like the lions, the otters, and so on, like where their personality is going to meet, where they're going to make them in, and know that that's their personality. And we have to make sure it works for our team, Sure.
Yeah.
So like our group teams, like girls soccer comes in with 12 girls. Boom. She's great with them. The girls love her, because like they came in and I was like, oh, do you know coach was playing overseas, professional player, played at Princeton, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, whoa, like instant kids loved it,
Yeah.
We bought that buy-in right away.
Yeah. There's a serious connection there. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we're coming up on about an hour, but I do want to.
Away, ready? Dang.
I know. We're fine. Man. I know. This is good content though. I'm pumped about this. But I do want to give you a chance, to just any sort of like information that you want to get out there about, Ripped. Obviously I already gave a look at, but like location, social media stuff for you, anything that you want to get out there.
Great. Coach Jake does a great job with our Instagram. I got Ripped. Mine's Coach Bobby Smith, but Instagram is probably the best way to find our information and, what we're keeping up to date and putting information out there. And then, hopefully all the conferences coming back, they're starting to come back. I get out there more and start presenting and speaking and, attending them because I've been itching and missing those as well too. I'm sure you.
Yeah, man. For sure. And then what's, when is the presentation or what presentations do you have coming up? I know you mentioned the one in Germany. Are there more? And when are they so that people know when they are, where to find them, all that stuff?
I'm getting on the Perform Better circuit as well too. That hasn't got out yet. And then Athletes Acceleration, we're starting to, I think, get things back together and start to get that information out there and get those circuits going again. But pretty soon, man, it's going to be all in the works and we're getting out there and get things back to normal.
Okay. And then last thing before you go, are there any specific maybe books or podcasts or materials that you would like to advise young coaches coming into the field that you feel they should have access to, something that you felt was a good start for you, certain people, right? Like if there's anybody that, you feel, young coaches should have access to, what would you say some of those materials are and where could you potentially find those things?
Yeah, I think, one of the 2 books that we always give our interns, I feel like is a huge influence was on me, is, John Gordon's book, The Carpenter. And what he talks about is love, serve, and care. And like, it doesn't matter what you do. If you bring those 3 things, those values, it was just like a huge impact on me. I remember I was like flying out to a conference and I was like read, like the different strategies. Martin Rooney was talking, I never saw a presentation of Martin Rooney was talking about that he's, loves strategies. And it talks about the best strategies of all, this John Gordon book. And I was like, oh man, it just coincidental. I got to read it. So I remember flying out there and I read that book and I was like, whoa, it just made a huge impact on me at that moment in time. It like came into like, not only what you do, but why you do it and how you do it and the love that you provide and how makes you stand out. And I feel like that was just a huge impact on me, The Carpenter, And then The other book that we give our interns is about Fred Factor, about the mailman making a huge impact and just making a difference. And like, how can you turn ordinary to extraordinary? And like, how can you take this warm up and make it extraordinary? You know, like I give you the opportunity to get these kids fired up and juiced up, and you come to me and the kids don't even look like they want to be here. You know? How can you make this an extraordinary warm up?
Right.
Go, you know, and how can you provide value that costs nothing?
Yeah.
You know, huge book. And I mean, obviously, you know, we're a big, you know, Joe Ken, Mike Boyle, Lee Taft, Martin Rooney, like the standards of like what made RYPT it is today. You know, those are, you know, our influencers and our mentors that will always stick true and true. That, you know, made us the, you know, Adam, Mary, Kate, and myself, the coaches that we are today in the facility that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are definitely great references, great resources. And so I just want to thank you. Obviously, the components of training and developing a team, that was the theme. And obviously, you know, you mentioned those 5 criteria that bring a team down. I think those things are super important. And you know, I think you did an incredible job really wrapping up and really summarizing the ideas of, you know, staying vulnerable, obviously holding people accountable, not fearing conflict, and obviously putting yourselves in positions where you actually understand the expectations, understand what RYPT consists of, not necessarily what we're going to provide, but who we are and what we consist of from a moral standpoint, right? And what you guys plan to provide from a humanizing standpoint. And I think, you know, I really appreciate this. And I think this is really good content, especially for young coaches coming into the field. So I want to thank you, Bobby. And we hope to catch a lot of your presentations out in the future. And obviously you have a bunch of presentations, a bunch of content already out there in the field. So continue doing what you do. You obviously have found a niche that allows the world to be a better place. So we thank you for that.
Appreciate that, man. It means a lot. Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. We will talk to you soon, Coach.